Recently, I married my husband, Scott, and gained a sister-in-law named Abigail. So, I was caught off guard by a strange call from her. Len, you listening? I am, but I didn't quite catch that. Okay, I'll say it again. Your cruiser, I crashed it into an iceberg. Yeah, still doesn't make sense. First off, I don't own a cruiser, and an iceberg? We're in Los Angeles, hardly an iceberg hotspot. Abigail is known for being a bit unconventional, so I figured she might be confused or just trying to mess with me. I decided to ask her again, did you really crash into an iceberg? Yeah, I deliberately hit the iceberg and sank it, Abigail said, laughing. Her tone annoyed me, so I pressed her further. Can you explain a bit more? Len, you're so silly. Fine, I'll explain, Abigail replied, still chuckling. Her story took me back to when I visited Scott's family home. We were having a family meeting, and Abigail was there. As soon as she saw me, she said, "Wow, you look kind of Japanese." My grandma's Japanese. She married an American, and my mom married my dad, who's also American. I have a more East Asian appearance, which has made me stand out a few times, I explained. I was a bit wary because I'd been teased about my appearance before, but Abigail surprised me by saying, "Really? That's so cool. You're really cute." Her compliment was a relief. I'd been worried about how Scott's family would accept me. Thank you. I'm looking forward to getting to know you all. Sure thing. That's how our conversation went until Victoria, my soon-to-be mother-in-law, joined us. Len, you lived in Los Angeles, right? Do you still have a house there? The house we lived in is occupied by someone else now, but we have relatives' homes there. Oh, I see. As long as you have relatives' homes there, no need to worry. Victoria seemed oddly pleased. Abigail added, that's what I was thinking too. I felt uneasy, but I didn't want to make a fuss, especially since traveling with Victoria and her family was a rare opportunity. I let the conversation continue, though Victoria and Abigail kept asking strange questions about the house I used to live in, the car I drove, and my relatives' homes in Los Angeles. I mentioned living in a house with a pool and that my uncle lives by a river. Victoria and Abigail laughed maliciously at this. That's when I realized they were planning to exploit my relatives to visit the West Coast. It felt like they were trying to take advantage of me. I was hesitant to complain since I didn't want to risk their acceptance of my marriage. After some thought, I decided to endure for now. The opportunity for a West Coast trip wasn't immediate, and I hoped by the time it came around, we could address this issue properly. For now, I chose to keep quiet. Somehow, I managed to get through all the introductions. At the end, Abigail asked for my contact information, which, regrettably, I gave her. That turned out to be a big mistake. After that, she started reaching out more frequently. At first, it was about once a week, and I could either accommodate or brush it off casually. But soon, her messages became more persistent, and it was getting to be a real hassle. I started using convenient excuses, like being at work or driving, to avoid her. Once Scott and I filed our marriage application, Abigail became even more relentless. I tried to meet up with her a few times, but her requests, twice or even 3 times a week, were overwhelming. Today, she called again, saying, "Hey, Len, want to hang out? It's already 8 p.m., and I have work tomorrow." What? You can't make it work, right? No, I really can't. Abigail has finished high school and works part-time, so she probably has more free time. But as a full-time employee with work from Monday to evening and only weekends and holidays off, plus newly acquired household responsibilities, I simply don't have the bandwidth to fit Abigail into my schedule. Sorry, I have a meeting early tomorrow morning. Stingy, even though you're rich. With that, she ended the call. I didn't hear from Abigail after that. Her comment about being rich confused me. I work full-time, but I don't have a high salary. I couldn't figure out where she got that idea. The next day, Victoria called me. "Len, do you want to go shopping together?" I'm pretty busy with work," I replied casually. Then Victoria said something strange. "You're rich, right, Len? I wanted to ask for your opinion on some brands I'm interested in." Wait, did I hear that right? Sorry, did you just say something about being rich? Yes, I did. What about it? I'm not rich. What? But you lived in Los Angeles, right? Victoria said as if that was obvious. Does living in Los Angeles automatically mean wealth? If that's the case, does that mean all Los Angeles residents are wealthy? I sighed, feeling bewildered. Victoria asked, "What's wrong?" "Just a misunderstanding. I'm not rich." "What? Even though you lived in a house with a pool?" "That's pretty common in California." "Oh, really?" "Yes. Sorry, I must have misunderstood." And with that, Victoria abruptly ended the call, leaving me puzzled. What was going on? I couldn't make sense of it. When I discussed this with Scott, he spoke to Victoria and Abigail on my behalf. According to Scott, they had assumed that because I lived in Los Angeles and mentioned having a house with a pool, it must have been in Beverly Hills, and Beverly Hills equals wealth. They concluded that I must be rich. If one lives in Beverly Hills, it's not unreasonable to assume wealth. However, I lived in Los Angeles, not Beverly Hills. Their assumption was flawed, but they believed it anyway, which explained their probing questions. I found it odd when they asked about my house, but I was honest, which unfortunately fed their misconceptions. While a house with a pool might be common in California, it's almost unheard of in Birmingham. It seems Victoria and her group misunderstood and thought I was wealthy, hoping they could benefit from my marriage with money or gifts. Their frequent contact was likely an attempt to cozy up to me in hopes of gaining something. Eventually, Scott cleared up the misunderstanding, but Victoria and her group seemed a bit disgruntled about it. I suppose if I had been wealthy, we might have enjoyed trips or nightly parties together. I can understand their disappointment when that turned out to be untrue. Still, it was a relief to have the confusion resolved. Later, when I met with Victoria's family to discuss the wedding plans, Victoria's approach was noticeably different. If the misunderstanding had continued, she might have pushed for a lavish wedding. Instead, she asked, "What kind of wedding are you planning? You're not going too extravagant, are you?" "Yeah, I'm thinking a small, family-only event would be ideal." "Good choice. You have to be mindful of expenses now." Her concern was appreciated. However, Abigail still seemed skeptical and didn't participate much in the wedding planning, which was a bit disappointing. Despite her absence, the wedding plans were moving forward. A year later, our wedding day arrived, and it was lovely. My parents from Birmingham made it to the ceremony, but my grandparents from Los Angeles couldn't make it due to travel difficulties. Instead, my uncle Taylor, my mother's brother, attended and promised to take pictures for my grandparents. A few hours before the ceremony, Taylor came to visit me in the dressing room. "Lynn, how are you?" Taylor runs a boat rental business, handling cruisers and pleasure boats popular among young Americans. He showed me a photo, saying, "Look at this, I just bought it." The photo was of a luxurious cruiser, clearly expensive. "How much?" This much." Taylor typed a figure into his phone, $3 million. "What?" Taylor, who has some hearing issues from a past accident, didn't quite catch my reaction. Speaking a bit louder helped him understand better. While I was stunned by the price, Taylor showed me another photo. "Lynn, this is your wedding present." "For me?" It was a picture of a pleasure boat. Taylor explained that his company had recently upgraded their fleet and kept one boat aside specifically for me. It was currently at his riverside home and available for me to use whenever I visited. "Thank you so much." As we were talking, Abigail entered the dressing room. "What's this? What did you get?" Abigail asked with a sly smile, clearly having been eavesdropping. If I mention the pleasure boat to Abigail, she'll definitely want to go for a ride, so I'd rather keep it quiet. However, she might have overheard, making it tough to hide. Reluctantly, I told her. "Taylor gave me a boat." "A boat? Who just gives away a boat like that?" "It's a second-hand boat from Taylor's company. Instead of getting rid of it, he gave it to me." Interesting. Abigail's lack of enthusiasm was a relief. After Taylor left, I moved to the mirror to do my makeup. As I glanced through it, I noticed Abigail studying the photo Taylor had brought. She might be more interested than she let on. Just as I was pondering this, Abigail vanished. After the wedding, while we were driving back, Victoria asked, "Lynn, did you let Grandma know about the marriage?" "Of course, I even sent her photos of my wedding dress." "That's good, but don't you think it'd be better to visit her?" I had a sinking feeling about where this was going. Victoria continued, "I'd like to visit your grandpa and grandma too. But they're in Los Angeles." "Exactly. I was thinking we could combine it with a family trip to the West Coast. It seemed Victoria hadn't given up on her travel plans. It was hard to refuse. As I considered how to decline, Victoria added, "Actually, I spoke with Taylor." "What, Taylor?" "Yes, and he said he'd be thrilled to have us visit." "Did Taylor really say that?" "Huh, that's something you pushed through." I suspected Taylor hadn't actually agreed, so I declined, not wanting to impose on him. Victoria's expression suddenly turned serious. "Oh, poor Grandpa and Grandma missed the wedding and can't see their grandchild." "Please don't put it that way. Don't you want to see them?" "I do, but see, then let's go." In the end, I couldn't refuse. Encouraged by Victoria, we decided to go to the West Coast for our honeymoon. Despite my reservations, it would be nice to see my grandparents and enjoy some time near Taylor's River. Plus, there was the pleasure boat to consider. I decided to embrace the opportunity and make the most of it. A few months after the wedding, we took our summer vacation to visit the West Coast. Taylor was happy to host us, so Scott, Victoria, Abigail, and I headed to Taylor's house in Los Angeles. My father-in-law couldn't join us due to work, but it was our first family trip since getting married, and I hoped it would help us bond with Victoria and Abigail. The day we arrived, we had a wonderful time reconnecting with my grandparents and introducing Scott to them. I also introduced Victoria and Abigail, and we enjoyed a family gathering. Abigail, as always, was cheerful and quickly fit in with Taylor's family. Victoria seemed to be having a good time too, and I felt we were making progress toward becoming a true family. The next day, my brother Kevin, who lives in San Francisco and is a college student, came by to visit late in the morning. "Lynn, Kevin, how's school?" I asked. "It's the weekend, so I came to say hello. I'll introduce you to Scott and everyone else." We chatted, but I couldn't find Victoria and Abigail anywhere. Scott, who was helping my aunt, was there, but Victoria and her group were missing. "Scott, where are Victoria and the others?" "I'm not sure," Scott shrugged. Just then, I received a call from Abigail. "Hello, Lynn." "Abigail, where are you? My brother just arrived." Before I could finish, Abigail burst into laughter. "You're so laid back, Lynn. What's going on?" "Abigail, do you know where we are? I was just looking for you." "That's a secret, I just wanted to tell you something." "Tell me what?" "Your cruiser, I deliberately crashed it into an iceberg and sank it." Abigail laughed loudly. That was the extent of her explanation over the phone. "So that's what happened. I get the story now. But what about my cruiser?" I remembered something from the wedding day. Taylor had given me a pleasure boat. Abigail was eavesdropping on our conversation, saw the photo of the cruiser, and heard me mention receiving a boat. She might have gotten confused. I tried to clarify. "The boat I got is at Taylor's house, not mine. If it's a cruiser, it's not mine." "I'm not sure," Abigail replied. "I saw it, and it sank right in front of me. It's hard to say, but I don't own a cruiser." "What? There was a photo, and you mentioned a gift." "The boat I received was a pleasure boat." "A pleasure what?" "Exactly. Abigail might not distinguish between a pleasure boat and a cruiser. A pleasure boat is for recreation, and a cruiser is for overnight stays." "So the cruiser you're talking about isn't mine?" "That's what I was trying to figure out. Based on your description, it's likely Taylor's cruiser." As I was thinking this over, I heard Taylor shouting on the phone, "What have you done? What's going on?" It dawned on me that Abigail must have mistaken Taylor's $3 million cruiser for mine and accidentally sunk it. "Abigail, stay where you are." "Why, what's the problem?" "This is Los Angeles, not a rural area like Alabama. Sinking a boat and running away is serious here." "Really?" "Yes, the police here handle major incidents. They're not like the sheriffs in Alabama, understand?" "Oh no." I could hear Abigail's voice breaking as she cried and pleaded with Victoria nearby. "Mom, help me." "I don't know, Abigail, you did this on your own. Help me." "I just wanted to ride on the cruiser," Abigail replied. It seemed like they were both shifting blame. As long as they stayed put, it was manageable. I quickly contacted Scott and headed to the marina where Taylor's cruiser was docked. It was only a few minutes' drive away. When I arrived, several police officers were already on the scene. I spoke with a visibly shaken Taylor. who explained that Abigail and Victoria had asked to use the cruiser early in the morning. However, their strong Alabama accents made their English difficult to understand. Taylor thought their request was unclear, given their accents. I turned to Abigail for her side of the story. She said, "I kept asking Taylor if I could use Lynn's cruiser." "Did you actually say that?" "Yes, but he didn't seem to understand." "So you repeatedly said Lynn's cruiser?" It seemed like she was trying to clarify her request, but I doubted it would have been clear. I checked with Taylor to confirm what he heard. He said, "Lynn's cruiser." Given the pronunciation and Abigail's strong accent, it wasn't surprising that it was misunderstood. Taylor, having noticed Abigail's unusual behavior, thought she wanted to borrow a cruiser. He decided to let her use his own cruiser, mistaking her request for mine. That explained the confusion. But why would Abigail want to sink the cruiser? I wondered if she thought I was pretending to be rich and that the cruiser was part of my hidden wealth. Maybe she wanted to get back at me out of jealousy or frustration. Sinking a cruiser seemed extreme, but I needed answers. I asked her, "How did you manage to operate the cruiser? You don't have a boating license, do you?" "I just figured it out by watching Taylor," Abigail said. "So you just guessed?" "Yeah, I played around with it, got it moving, and then couldn't stop it. I crashed into the dock, and it started sinking, so I thought I might as well sink it." According to Abigail, her plan was only to cause minor trouble, but the cruiser moved more easily than she expected. After hitting the dock and sinking, she panicked. Instead of calling for help, she thought of a movie she had seen about a ship sinking after hitting an iceberg. She assumed that if she said it hit an iceberg, it would create a sense of urgency. Since Hollywood is based in Los Angeles, she figured there must be icebergs nearby. With this bizarre logic, she claimed the cruiser had struck an iceberg to elicit panic. Abigail hoped that by causing me to worry, she could exact some form of revenge. I understood why Abigail lied about hitting an iceberg, but her reasoning was absurd. Afterward, Scott gave both Abigail and Victoria a stern reprimand. Fortunately, no other boats were damaged, so covering the repair costs resolved the immediate issue. But now I was left wondering why I had to work for a river cleaning company. Abigail protested. "In Birmingham, repair costs are always high. There are other jobs available." "Well, you wanted to be on a boat, right? This river cleaning company allows you to do that." "I wanted to be on a cruiser, not just any boat." In the end, Abigail found herself working at the river cleaning company, picking up trash from the boat. It was hard work, but at least it involved being on a boat, which was her initial desire. For me, there was a small silver lining. Victoria also started working. As a result, Abigail contacted me less frequently, which was a relief. While I want to maintain a good relationship with them, it was important that they focus on working and earning money, especially given the situation with Taylor. Otherwise, I'd be in a tough spot. After all, I still haven't had a chance to enjoy that $3 million cruiser myself.